Hello. If you've arrived at this website, thank you for taking action. My name is Brother Crump. I am a professor of sales up here in the marketing. I kind of head up the marketing, the sales program. So thank you for coming. The purpose of this video is to really shed a light on what summer sales is or isn't from a different perspective. If you're like most people who are on campus, at some point it seems like you get recruited into summer sales. You meet somebody new, they seem like they're really somebody you'd like to get to know, and you have some conversation around summer sales. You know, they make it sound good, they talk a lot about the money you can make and how it's not that hard. That's fine. And later in the process, if you continue in those conversations, you get invited to do some cool stuff with some really fun people, like, go to cabins for retreats and jazz games. Maybe you go shoot some guns or throw some axes. You get taken out to sushi or go for a ride and get to drive a sweet Porsche or Tesla or something. And during this process, you're getting painted a really amazing picture, showcasing just all the upsides and all the great things about summer sales. You're hearing all the successes and win stories, which is totally prototypical. Okay, but this slide, I just wanted to shed a little light and maybe a little dose of reality that you may or may not be hearing during this recruiting process. So imagine what it's like. You've decided to go and you get out there, just so you know and realize, you're getting up at 8 a.m. You're starting at 8 a.m. You're up before then, and you're working, till 9 or sundown every single day. 6 days, 5.5 days a week. You'll go to lunch and you'll meet with the team and partake of a meal together and kind of rally each other up, and then you go back out. And what does it look like? Well, you're literally knocking doors, 150, 200 doors, and 6 days a week. You're literally knocking thousands, even 10,000 doors in a summer. To say it's Groundhog Day over and over again, it really is. That would be an understatement. So just remember, like, can you actually do that? Thousands of doors every single week for 12 to 14 weeks, continuous. If you can, and I know I love summer sales, you learn to work really hard, no doubt. But did you also know, and maybe this hasn't been brought up yet, but 3/4 of you first timers, when you go out, are going to come home in the first several weeks, right? Sometimes it's, you'll know in a few days. Sometimes you try and grit it out, for 3-4 weeks. And then you come home. Well, okay, it's a free country. You can come home, which is great. But a lot of times you don't even know that you're on the hook then, because you didn't finish for the rent. And you may not actually get paid for any sales you did make during those several weeks that you were out there grinding, right? Most first-time sellers only make about 10, 15, 18 grand a year. That's pretty prototypical, which is fine. But when you put a pencil to it, a lot of students don't. You're probably working upwards of 800 plus hours during the summer. And when you take 10 grand divided by 800 hours, it's about $12.50 an hour. And you're paying all your own taxes as a 1099 employee, right? Like, you have to pay a higher tax rate on that than you would, say, if you just worked a normal job. Say it was 15,000, then that gets up to about $18 an hour, which isn't bad. But could you be making that, if not more, and still have a pretty good life working a different job? Those are questions you got to ask yourself. And just know that anomalies exist. Sometimes you're Rookie of the Year and a few things like that, and you make more, which is fine. But just know the vast majority of you will not. So that's important to understand. Now, if you do decide to go, before you sign anything, consider the following. Have you done your due diligence on the company? There are options. Some companies are better than others. Some verticals, meaning, is it solar, is it pest, is it home automation, etc. Which ones are more favorable? Which companies hold the same values and culture that I would thrive in? What percentage of sellers actually made quota once you've identified a company? Ask those hard questions. How are the territories determined? Because a lot of times junior sellers come back and they report to me after the summer and they say, man, I did not get a good territory, where the same person on my team, same situation as me, happened to get a better territory where somebody liked he or she better, and they actually crushed it because I got a really crappy territory. So are all territories equal? You need to manage that, right? And what is the true culture and the values? Have you talked to the ownership? Have you been to enough events and been around those people? And are you looking at it through a eye of, are these the kind of people I aspire to be, right? Next, have you had your employment agreement reviewed? Have you even reviewed it? A lot of sellers just be like, well, everybody signs it, and they sign away without having thoroughly read it. You never, ever sign a business contract, including a 1099 employment agreement, without reading every single line. And if you have access to somebody, be it an attorney, a family friend, a parent, somebody that can lead and guide you, who's been there, done that, and can flag a few things for you, please do that. Also, since you are a 1099 employee, you need to consider setting up your own legal entity, whether that's an LLC, an S Corp. Have you actually talked to an attorney to get that set up? A few $100s now can save you thousands in commissions over the years. So make sure you're doing that if you are indeed going to move forward. Also, how well have you negotiated your comp plan? Did you know that you don't have to take the first comp plan given to you, the first percentage that is offered as a percent of sales? In fact, quite the opposite. The guy sitting next to you, he may be getting double of what you are, 50% more for the exact same work. So have you negotiated your commission plan and your commission rates on that 1099 agreement? What about housing? Like I talked earlier, sometimes you get a big surprise, or sometimes you get out there and there's no apartment for you. Like, what are you going to do, right? So any promises made, any cash advances to get out there and get going, are you going to be responsible for those if you don't finish the summer, if you don't do well? Just know up front, and don't get a verbal on it, put it in writing. Even an email exchange or a text exchange can hold some validity, right? And lastly, if you do come home early, are you going to get paid for any sales you grinded out there? Maybe you weren't crushing it, but you did make sales. Are you going to get paid or not, right? Are you going to get cheated out of those, if you will? So read those contracts, be thoughtful before signing anything and leading into an agreement. I've had students come and say, Brother Crump, I have to miss class because I'm going to be in 2 days of depositions in Salt Lake City because of a labor dispute and some of these contracts. Is that something you want? Make sure you get all your I's dotted and your T's crossed before entering into a business legal agreement. Now, you've done all that, and you're like, Brother Crump, this is amazing. I'm still going to do it. I'm optimistic. Great. How well do you know your team? Not the company, but how well do you know the individuals that you're going to be spending almost 24 hours a day, 7/24 for 3 months, 4 months? Do they hold the same standards you aspire to? How well do you know them? Are you going to have, is the company and the culture and the team culture going to make time for personal time with the Lord through scripture study and prayer? Are you going to have time to regularly and actively attend church and become involved? Are you going to make time for the temple? Are you going to, share an Uber with somebody and go out and make time on Tuesday mornings at 6 a.m. to do that, to get back at 10 and hit the grind? Are you going to be able to do those things that keep you whole with the Lord? And lastly, I underlined it and put it in red. Please, 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 if you do go, choose who you go out with. Make sure they are very best friends with the same standards you aspire to. Because if not, they're going to rub off on you. And if so, they are going to rub off on you. So summer sales can be done right, but the most integral part is who you're going out there every day, all day with. Okay? Lastly, I always say this, look, I'm actually a fan when done right and your eyes are wide open into door to door. You learn how to work hard, you learn how to talk to people, you learn how to take rejection like a champ. Like, I get it. Those are all great qualities in business and in sales. But the other thing is one thing to go out and do it, but it's another thing to say, and look in the mirror. Am I doing this honestly, ethically, and morally? Right? Satan loves to trade lies for money. And if you don't believe wholeheartedly in your solution, if you're maybe getting a little more money than maybe you should, you probably aren't being honest with yourself, let alone the other person and the Lord, right? So think about who's on the other side of the door. I like to say, this is my grandma. She has money, but am I gouging grandma? Am I doing anything that would cause me embarrassment if grandma found out what really could have been done, right? So just remember who's on the other side of the door. Also remember, because you're in a foreign city with a small group of people who may or may not be living the gospel standards, doesn't mean your covenants don't come with you across those state lines, right? You have to be true in order to reap all the blessings from the Lord. And lastly, the dating scene. Imagine you're out every day, all day. You don't have time to meet, somebody to date in a normal, healthy way. So a lot of times students report that they fall victim into, swipe right. I'm not even sure exactly what that means, but I know it isn't good. So are you going to do that? So that's part of the honestly, ethically, and the morally clean. Lastly, I kind of want to finish this slide just with a couple verses, speaking of who's on the other side of the door. Have you done unto others as you would have liked done to yourself? If you were the one signing up, would you make yourself a really solid deal that didn't gouge, that didn't take advantage of anybody? Because inasmuch as you've done it unto the least of these, my brethren, you've done it unto me. And that's vis-a-vis the picture of the Lord there, right? You cannot trade lies for money. You cannot compromise your morals and your ethics in order to make money. You just can't do it. It's not the way the Lord would have you do it. Conversely, just in parting, wanted to make you aware, most students don't even know that there is a professional sales certificate offered from BYUI. These are the 5 classes that any student, regardless of class, sophomore, freshman, junior, even if they don't graduate, you can still obtain the certificate. Or regardless of your department or your degree that you're working towards. You can be in ag and come get this. You can be in nursing, you can come get this. You don't just have to be a business major to do this. So if you are interested, maybe summer sales isn't for you, or maybe it is, that's fine too, but you owe it to yourself to have exposure to business sales, which leads to very, not only lucrative, but super rewarding careers. What we teach is how you go out and you deliver value to your customers. And those customers over time become your friends. So at the end of the day, you're just making your friends better. And that's really at the heart of sales, especially sales done in a business-to-business environment, which we wholeheartedly teach up here. So if you've made it to this point in the video, congratulations. It's been a long 13 minutes. Hopefully you watched it in time and a half and we're able to keep pace. But if you have any questions or comments, go ahead. I'm uploading this to YouTube. So if you want, leave some comments. I'll try and check it. But more importantly, just feel free to come talk to us. Ask a few deeper questions. Ask a little bit more about the sales certificate. You can pose questions about the companies, not that I'm really going to give you any advice, but I can ask you questions to maybe go and seek out words of wisdom yourself. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless you, and hope to see you on campus soon. Peace out.